The Utah Mammoth is sorta proud to present NashCast.
What the is a NashCast?
NashCast, the only hockey show on the planet. Hosted by a human speed bag, fourth line wannabe, healthy scratch, schnozzy moto, Tyson Nash.
Who the hell is Tyson Nash?
Never heard of him.
And the baritone with a brain, the velvet hammer, Mr. Silky, Tono Suave, the radio voice of your Utah Mammoth, Mike Folta.
Oh, Captain, my Captain!
NashCast begins now.
Ready for takeoff.
Here's Tyler Ganoush and Mickey Foghorn. Wait, what? Oh, here's Tyson Nash and Mike Folta.
All right, we're back, Foltz. Great to see your smiling face once again. Hockey right around the corner, Foltz. I'm feeling it. I got goosebumps. I'm getting jacked up. I got my Tusks Up shirt on once again. The Mammoth, all the moves that they've made in the offseason. But I guess we'll get to that shortly. But Foltz, what have you been up to, buddy?
Oh, another wedding this last weekend, Tyson. And once again, the proud officiant of this wedding. So now I'm 3 for 4 on weddings. I've had a divorce mixed in there a little, so I've got to get my numbers up a little bit. But this couple, Hayden and Bailey, happily married. Love those guys. So had a ton of fun, but we're all recovered now. And Tyson, are you at the Natural History Museum next to the U right now? Are you hanging out with Veggie? I saw he was he was checking out the dinosaurs earlier this week. Is that where you are?
I know. I'm starting to look like a dinosaur at my age, but look at this bad boy. I mean, that is a thing of beauty. We got Logan Cooley right there, 9'2", in the background, but the big mammoth. I cannot wait. You're seeing pictures, right? I'm seeing videos of some of the interviews that are happening at rookie camp, and they're sporting the new unis. I mean, that mammoth looks so badass. I cannot wait to see it. Game number 1. In the Delta Center, it is going to be something to see. But Foltz, again, at my age, I'm going to more funerals, so it's nice to see that that weddings are still happening out there. I'd love to see it. I hope it was a toonie bar as well, because I know how you can drink, and I would feel sorry for those guys getting married in that bill.
Hey, when you're the officiant, a man of the cloth, you got to look presentable, right? But you also got to lead the charge on the dance floor sometimes. So it was a great time. But I think Nash, as we're recording this here on Wednesday or before Wednesday, this episode's dropping on Wednesday. We've got the rookies on the ice over at the shops in Southtown as this rookie camp is firing up. We've got games this weekend with the Utah prospects in those Mammoth jerseys for the first time. I mean, it's crazy to think about, but the party's over. No more weddings, no more summer barbecues or anything like that. No more days at the lake. It's hockey season. We have officially reached that time of year this week, and we'll have, things to talk about, games to talk about, practices and guys coming into camp, things like that to discuss coming up, which is super exciting. But Nasher, we've got the guys in town now. We've been seeing that the Mammoth have been parachuting in from different parts of the world. There you go. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see we got Liam O'Brien, who was handed, I think that's a bonito fish. Someone just gave him a fish at the airport.
At least it was wrapped. At least it's what is that, shrink wrap there or something? I mean, because that thing would be nasty, right? In the Utah heat, that thing baking a little bit. But love to see the boys coming in. Hopefully they get the new bags, right? Those are the old Utah Hockey Club bags. Let's get rid of those. Toss those in the garbage. Let's spread the love. The Mammoth. I can't wait, Foltz, to get back and get to the team shop and load up on some of that swag. Look at that shirt you're wearing. That is on point, buddy. Looking fresh.
Well, you just saw Sergachev and JJ Peterka. You saw Peterka had the new bag. Can we show that picture of Peterka again? Look at the legs on this guy, Tyson.
Jeez. He must work out.
Yeah, like seriously. look at the backside on that guy. I
That's
mean,
that's called a hockey ass right there. All right, we take pride in those, right? And that's where all the speed, the power, that's where it comes from. Not so sure about the white pants just yet. I'm not a white pant guy, but that's a European for you right there. They know how to dress. He is absolutely dripping, strutting his way into Utah to make a huge impression. I can't wait to see him play, see how he connects with his new teammates and the chemistry that obviously Andre Tournier wants to see early in training camp because that was a big move by Bill Armstrong.
so training camp's coming up, Tyson, but I mean, going back to your days as a player, there's captain skates and things like that, right? I mean, what's it like when everybody's kind of flooding in to town to reunite before training camp starts, but there's still some things where guys are getting together?
So much fun. I mean, that is the stuff you kind of miss. Besides the fitness testing, which I think is now out. I don't think there's fitness testing anymore. So what a dream. Coming to training camp, you don't have to worry about the wind gate. You don't have to worry about the VO2 and the shuttle run. That stuff kept me up at nights. And you were always so happy and relieved when it was over, right? But now these guys come to camp. Teammates, and it's going to be a little different feel, exciting, I'm sure, for a guy like Peterka, some of the new faces that we're going to see, the Tanevs as well, just trying to connect immediately with this group because they're trying to do something special. I love the fact that Clayton Keller put it on the wall, right, and said, we are playoff bound or it will be a real, I guess, not loss, but that's our goal. And
Yeah.
that's all that's on our mind. And that hasn't been the case for a number of years. But playoffs, you love to see it. This is a group and a captain that wants his team to get to the next level.
So we'll be discussing all things Mammoth here coming down the chute as we get into rookie camp and training camp, which is, again, right around the corner. Steve Martinson is our guest today, a longtime player in the minor leagues, longtime coach, had a cup of coffee in the NHL as a player as well, but great interview with him. But before we get to that, we did want to mention the passing of Ken Dryden, a legendary goalie in the NHL for a long time, broadcaster as well, and just Hall of Fame person. Tyson, never had the chance to meet him myself, but he was well loved amongst the hockey community, and that's evident by the outpouring of support that we've seen on social media.
Yeah, just an incredible, obviously, person first and foremost. But he did pave the way, right, between the pipes. I mean, this was a legendary goaltender for years and years. And you mentioned he got into broadcasting for a time afterwards. Just a legend of the game. And we talk about those guys. And as a former player, those are the type of guys that paved the way for all of us, right? To be able to continue to do what we did, make the money that we did, and play on the stage that we played on. And a big shout out goes to a guy like Ken Dryden, who definitely was, looked upon as a hero for all those young goaltenders out there back in the day.
Well, let's get to Steve Martinson. Nasher, I know we had a ton of fun with him, and I kind of knew when I brought Marty on that you guys were going to click because he's old school, right? I had a chance to meet him when I worked in Rockford in the American Hockey League. He coached there in Rockford. He's currently the head coach of the Allen Americans in the ECHL, which last year was the ECHL affiliate of the Utah Mammoth. That's not going to be the case this year, but he was nonetheless a fun interview, Nasher, with a ton of great stories and one of those personalities that makes our sport so special.
Yeah, hats off to you, Foltz. I'll tell you what, you brought an unreal guest to the table. I wasn't sure how it was going to play out. I didn't know him from Adam. Obviously, I researched him, ton of fun researching him and his stint in the National Hockey League. And I know he didn't play long, but boy, did he make his presence felt. I think he put up he had 10 games or something. And he put up 84 penalty minutes in that time. But his stories, this is the type of guy you want to go for a cocktail with, sit around. That's what I miss. I don't miss playing anymore, but I miss sitting with those type of guys and just telling stories, right? I can't imagine what it was like for you folks working with him and the filter that he had to put on, because there was no filter in this interview. He was letting it fly, the stories. I'm not sure what we edited out or what we're going to keep, but hopefully we keep it all because those stories were beautiful.
When we would broadcast games together in Rockford, we were the toughest broadcast booth in the AHL. And when I would walk out, we got even tougher. So it was a great time getting to meet him when I worked in the minor leagues, and we had a great time on this interview. Let's get to Steve Martinson. It is with great pleasure that we welcome to the NashCast the man who has the most pro hockey head coaching wins of any American-born coach, 10 pro hockey coaching championships, played 49 games in the NHL as well. Former Salt Lake Golden Eagle from way back in the day. Steve Martinson, the current head coach of the Allen Americans, the team that was Utah's ECHL affiliate last year. Marty, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. It's tough to after that introduction with you guys. It's tough to keep a straight face. So that nose I used to fight a guy that had a nose like that. I used to say when we get to the penalty box, like it's no fair. If I had a face like yours, I get 1,000 penalty minutes a year.
Well, I could poke your eye out, Marty. I mean, that's kind of what I did in my career, right? I was like a woodpecker.
Well, I obviously you had something on your face. There's one that had that nose really protruding. So anyway,
yeah, it's like Tim Hunter. I sucked all the oxygen out of the building back in the day. But
it's funny that you mentioned his name because that's the guy I was talking about.
How did I know? I actually saw him at a charity event the other day. Me, Dave Scatchard, and Tim Hunter. We took a picture with all our side profiles, and I was just happy to say that I finished third in that nose off. So, so it was
when he played when I was in the Central League, and he was there with Calgary back in the day, back when in Colorado. One of the, I guess I got to watch what I say, but his wife told one of our players that he actually had the smallest nose in his family. So
yeah, his sister, and it's never been broken. He told me the other day. I was like, "There's no way." Semenko crushed that thing all over your face every night.
Yeah, well, it's an easy target.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, let's get right into it now that we're warmed up, Marty. I mean, you played in the National Hockey League. You played for 2 original 6 teams, Detroit, Montreal. Then you played for your hometown team, the North Stars. I can't even imagine, but let's get right into it. Your most memorable NHL fight, because you had a lot of them.
Gosh, you know what? I mean, it was probably Semenko because I was on a tryout with Detroit. And I fought him 3 times in the first preseason game with Detroit, and I was a rookie. And the funny thing, I had hemorrhage. I had some problems with my neck, so I had actually herniated my disc like a week before camp. So we get to camp, and I'm still not 100%. And they say no fighting in camp, and you used to hear that. Well, no fighting in camp. Yeah, okay. Well, turned out Probert and Kosher were both on my team, so I got through the first weekend without any fights. And then I was much better. And then, yeah, it was great. It was a fun night because it was like 20,000 people. Joe Louis back in the day was, they play that Now You're Messing with the Son of a Probert, and it was pretty fun. It was a fun night.
I feel pretty safe with those guys patrolling the wings, right? Kosher, oh my God. Where would you put him and Probert as far as toughest guys ever to play the game?
So I live with Joey, and the funny thing about him is, like, I broke my hand, probably 10 times and broke my fingers and my thumb. And Joey had never broken his hand. And his right arm was bigger. It's like a tennis player. His right arm was bigger than his left arm. And I asked him about it. I said, well, because we were all big in working out in those days. And I'm like, why is your right arm so much bigger than your left arm? And he goes, I think it's from picking up rocks on the farm and throwing them in, they would throw them in behind the tractor and throw them in a bucket. And he goes, that's what it was. But the reason he could punch so hard, he never hurt his hand. Like, you know what I mean? So he hit you in the helmet, hit you in the forehead. Most people, you throw really hard, you're going to break your hand if you hit him, in the wrong spot. But man, he was probably one of the scariest guys to punch.
Oof.
I mean, to fight.
1,000%.
I never fought him because I was friends with him, but he had a haymaker, and he only had to hit you once.
Marty, I was telling Nasher before you jumped on that we called games together when I was in Rockford, the affiliate for the Blackhawks, and we'd be on the broadcast together, and you would be there. We are. Look at those 2 handsome fellas. Yeah, you'd be describing the proper technique, how to fight somebody, but you'd be using me as a crash dummy and like shaking me around, and Marty, I've gone back and listened to some of those moments on air, and you can like hear the microphone like hitting my
You have
face.
too
As
much time. You got too much time on your hands.
That was not his demo tape when he sent it
Well,
to
I was going to say
Utah.
to Tyson, so the way players fight now, I think is really dumb. You know what I mean? Like they grab in the front, but they'll go like 5, fights without getting hit, but you can still get hit really hard because there's no tying up. And I guess part of it is they don't fight as much anymore because of the rules. But to me, it's just a dumb way to fight, to allow a guy and they're so good. They're so good at counter punching now. So you know what I mean? A lot of times they're not within reach of each other, so they just swing and it doesn't really get anything done.
I hate to be one of those guys too, right? And I know I'm pretty sure you're gonna agree with me, but like today, like I'd almost be halfway tough, right? Like I was a flyweight back in the day, and now like I literally crap my pants before every single game because you're standing on the blue line. You got yourself, you got Kosher, you got Probert, you got McCarty, you got the whole list of them, right? And then that's just one team, right?
Yeah.
Every team had 3 or 4 guys. I know in St. Louis, we had Tony Twist, we had Kelly Chase, we had Rudy Postcheck. I mean, we had one of the toughest
Ewan was
teams.
there too at one time.
Yeah, I mean, we had so many guys, and like I don't know what there is to be scared about nowadays, right? Like I would sleep like a baby.
Easy. Yeah, now it's easy because now the guys that couldn't really play, like I could play in the American, like I was very limited in the NHL, but I put up points in the American League and at the end of my career and in AAA. So, now it would be like be so easy because all those guys, especially the steroid guys, they're all gone. And the guys you see in warmups, because back when I was first playing, you didn't have videotape. So if I saw a guy who didn't skate very good in warmups, I'm like, okay, this guy's probably pretty tough because doesn't look like he can even skate. But the one funny thing I got to tell you about Kordic, when you're talking about all those guys, one time was a preseason game against Quebec, and they called up all their guys from the minors at the end of the training camp. So Montreal calls me up, and we're talking before the game. And John was a really good fighter and really tough, but he just thought about it way too much. And he's talking about all these guys, and he keeps bringing it up. He goes, "Why'd they bring this guy? Why they got that guy?" And this was when Kimball was a rookie. And I'm like, John, because I used to get in a lot of street fights and bar fights, and I'm like, John, you can only fight 3 times, and you can only fight one guy at a time. So let's go. And he didn't drop his gloves. They traded him. They traded him a little while later and brought me up, but I was like, he didn't even check his coat that game. And I'm like, come on, just plan on fight. Let's go.
So when did you know? I mean, Steve, that you love punching people in the face. I mean, I know you went through the gauntlet, you came up through minor hockey, but when did you know that you loved and enjoyed getting hit and obviously giving?
Yeah, so probably about 6th grade. I used to get a lot of fights at school. And then I had a Lola. I didn't grow. Like I was 5'2" in 10th grade. So I didn't grow, and then later on I had to catch up and get some guys back that picked on me when I was like 5'2" and weighed 120 pounds. But so one of the things that people don't realize there's a lot of guys that are tough and good fighters, but they just can't take a punch even though they're tough. There's just the makeup, and I just have a really thick head. So like I would joke, I'm like, it takes a lot to hurt me. You got to hit me just right. And so I was just able to, to take a punch, and then, I actually like to fight. So I wasn't one of those people that's going to complain later and say, "Oh, they made me into this guy." I'm like, no, I was that guy. I fought Archie Henderson my first fight in rookie camp, or Minnesota as a rookie. My first day of camp, I was like, I knew I had to fight somebody. I got 3 days of meal money, and everybody else from the University of Minnesota had a week. And I'm like, okay, you better make an impression fast. So I picked a fight with Archie, anyway, it was a good time thinking back to those days. It was a lot of fun.
You did some quick math, eh?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, how much meal money did you get? I'm like, okay, well, you don't know. And so I still tell players now that are going to campus, and take every day like it's your last day. Don't say I'm going to get another day. Just every day like it's your last time on the ice, and don't leave anything, in the stands. So
Marty, you definitely have that Norwegian build, right? That big Viking head. When you were working out arms, did you work out like your neck at all to be able
to? I used to have like a 19-inch neck back in the day, and I could bench 340 at like 205. So I joke with the players now. I'm like, if I would have got tattoos when I was your age, they would look really stupid now because my arms aren't big anymore. So I said, plus I'm too cheap. It would have cost me a lot more money because now I tease the players that they don't want to be strong. They just want to look good. And, back in my day, it's like you had to be pretty strong because a lot of those guys, especially at the end of my career, were, 6'5", 250. And you would see guys like McSorley and, this guy, McSorley went from like 210 to 225, 230. They would do that in one summer. And, they didn't just all of a sudden get a great training coach. Back in those days, it was pretty prevalent with players that you could see in the next, anybody that put on 20 pounds in the summer, was hitting it pretty hard. But some guys used to take steroids just to be mean, just to be a meaner guy on the ice.
Well, nobody accused me of taking steroids. I can tell you that. But what happened? I mean, going through your resume, you were like a 250, 300 minutes, every season. I don't know how many fights that includes. I can probably say it was a good 20 to 30 every year. But 1985-86, you played 69 games. The Hershey Bears, you put up 432 penalty minutes. That is a career for some players. So clearly the wires were crossed.
Yeah, you know what happened that summer? I had a deal from Hershey, from the Flyers, and then I got a call from Edmonton, and Edmonton had played the Flyers in the Stanley Cup the year before, and so they called me up and they say, "Hey, we heard from our AA people that you could fight and blah da da." So I said, "Well, I got this contract from the Flyers," and they said, "Well, don't sign it, and let me talk to Sather." So Sather gets on the phone with me and says to me, "Hey, Steve," because I've been in the Central League, which was only 5 teams, and that was AAA, but it was only, it was like the Rangers and Minnesota and just a few teams. So anyway, Sather goes, "I've never heard of you." And he said, "But my people tell me you can fight, and if you can fight, you can have a crack at Semenko's on his way out. You get a crack at him at first day of camp." And I made the mistake of signing with the Flyers, and about 2 weeks later, they traded for McSorley, and then he ended up getting. Now he was a lot younger than me, but anyway, I just said, "You know what? I'm going to make sure everybody knows who I am. I'm not going to have another GM say, 'I don't know who you are.'" So that record, his 49 majors, is going to the grave with me. I'm pretty sure.
49 majors.
Yeah, I had actually 44 fights, and we used to run the goalie back then, and you'd only get hit 5 minutes for hitting the goalie. So I used to hit the goalie a lot. That was kind of my thing.
See, I love this. This is the best.
Get a major penalty, you don't get thrown out of the game.
Yeah.
I was like, so certain teams knew not to get out, not to play the puck too much back in those days. That was kind of the fun thing to do.
Marty, did you fight a player when you were a coach?
Well, I did, but the player
He was asking for it.
Well, he actually suckered me. He actually suckered me when he had lined up in front of our bench, and I'd put all our tough guys out, and we had this Barry Potomsky, who, I don't know, Nash, did you ever hear of Barry Potomsky? He died kind of young, but he was a killer, and he was like 6'2", 220. Anyway, I put our tough guys out, and he looked at me and he goes, "Well, why don't you suit up?" And I said, "Well, why don't you lose some weight?" And our whole bench started laughing at it. And so when I came out for the next period, he was standing there waiting, like standing in front of me, because you have to walk. It wasn't like you're coming on the bench. You have to walk along the boards a lot of times in these rinks. So he was in my way. So I said, "Hey, excuse me." And I went to shift him, and he took a swing at me. And so he's lucky I didn't have one of my ring-ons, because I hit him a few times, but then it was just a Donnybrook. And like, we had a really tough team, and a couple of their guys ended up going to the hospital, and a couple of their guys never played again. So it was, that was a crazy night. The guy's name was Badu.
Well,
can't remember.
So that was when you were in San Diego, and we actually have the news footage of that night. I don't know if Adam can roll this news. Here we go.
The game to be canceled. John Fricke is here a little early with details.
It's like Anchorman.
Yeah,
back in the day.
Right in the middle of the game, everybody had to go home. Ticket holders left wondering what in the world happened. A major brawl at the Gulls game late tonight, bad enough that they had to call the game off after 2 periods, send all the fans at the sports arena home. Well, here's what happened. As the players came out for the third period of the game at the sports arena,
there's Potomsky, 24. He was just killing guys.
Gulls head coach Steve Martinson. That triggered this massive brawl between the two teams on the ice. A battle so big that officials almost immediately suspended the rest of the game. Now, Martinson told 10 Sports that he heard that Phoenix had planned to start the brawl.
That kid never played another game.
Heard him talk about it and set it
Wow.
up. So,
Good-looking guy. Look at that.
I didn't really think when I saw him come skate in front
Tim's
of
hard
me,
to hurt.
I just thought he was trying to prove a point. I didn't think he'd really try it. He said something to me on our bench when I put our tough line out. He said something to me about me playing, and I just told him to lose some weight. That's all I said.
I got a good
John
memory for
Baduke
that
in there
stuff.
somewhere? Did you say John Baduke? That was my tough guy back for Syracuse.
Yeah, it was. His name was Baduke. Yeah, I think it was John Baduke. It was this last year, and we found out later he planned on retiring because they suspended him for I actually got suspended, but yeah, I think and I found out later that he just went home and that was it. He wasn't going to play anymore. So it's a small world.
Unbelievable. Well, let's get back into the National Hockey League for a second. Again, you played for original six teams and your hometown team, Minnesota. But that first game, we always remember our first, right? What was that like for you throwing on that Detroit jersey for the first time?
Well, one of the things that I say about Detroit is that Demers didn't do a good job coaching because in 10 games, I had 1 goal and 1 assist. And I was like plus 3 or 4. And I'm like, over 80-game season, I would have had 660 penalty minutes, and I think I would have had like 8 goals and 8 assists. Would have been really good now. But
you'd have been playing with Stevie Y.
Well, yeah. Well, I was on a line with Kosher and native guy. I'm trying to remember his name, but so anyway, I had tried to hit Gretzky. It was my first game. And Gretzky had come around the back of the net, and I tried to hit him. And I was thinking to myself at the time, I left my point, left him wide open. I'm like, this might be my only game, and I'm going to tell my buddies I ran Gretzky. So he comes around the back of the net, and I tried to hit him, and our defenseman just tripped him, and I went right over the top. And I think Edmonton could tell, they knew I was trying to hit him. So the next time I'm on the ice, McSorley comes out, and he's in really good shape, and I know he's got good stamina. So I'm like, I'm going to fight him about 30 seconds into the shift. I'm going to cruise around, and we joust a little bit, and we dump the puck in the corner, and they center it to me, and I score. So it was like my second shift of the game, and I score, and it ends up being the game winner. But we were now up 3-1. And so every time I came out after that, it was Messier's line. And I would start back checking at the top of the circle, and they would pass me. By the time we hit the red line, they would be past me.
Got to take the snowshoes off.
I didn't play it all. Yeah, I didn't play it all. I was just like, hey, they're matching up Gretzky or Messi. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. I'm getting tired sprinting to the bench to change. So that was a pretty good first game. You don't get to score too often your first game.
Wow.
So I got to ask you, that mentality, though, right? And it drives me crazy today. I know you're coaching these young kids. It's a new era, all that stuff. But I remember going to training camp at 24. I never got a sniff in Vancouver. My dad says, hey, don't say woulda, coulda, shoulda after this training camp. Make sure they know who you are. I know you touched on that already. But I've seen countless training camps. And I'm like, these kids come in, and unless they're first, second, or third rounders, you don't even notice them. And I'm like, what are you doing? You want to grab these kids and just shake them and be like, you're going to come and go like a fart in the wind, and no one's going to know who you are ever. Do you see that today? And does it frustrate you?
Well, so we used to hear that there's a lot of bartenders, a lot of really good skilled hockey players that are bartenders in Canada. And that's one of the things I used to hear when I was playing. And one thing is, it's hard to become faster. It's hard to become more skilled. You can do all those things, but it takes time. The easiest thing I tell players is to be harder to play against. And so, whether you're finishing your checks or being greasier, that's how you can make an impression and go out there and hit people, make sure. But like you say, you can't, if you're not in the NHL and you're a skilled guy, you've got to add more to your game. And that's the easiest thing, especially now, because just, back in our day, sometimes if you hit a guy, it was an automatic fight. Nowadays, they allow you to hit. And to me, hitting's part of the game. And that's the number one thing is, finish your checks and other things will follow. Because if you're a goal scorer, you have to play with good players and you have to get scoring opportunities. But if you go in there as a greasy player, it's easier to make a first impression.
I know from talking with you in the past, Marty, that a lot of your championship teams were obviously very skilled, but they could also fight, and they were tough and physical as well. Did you ever, when you were coaching, have to get a skilled player or maybe a more offensively minded player to buy in to the physicality that you expected out of them?
Well, You know, like I use the example now when I'm recruiting guys at the Panthers. I said, you know, I tell people, you know, we play the way the Panthers, but what I used to really, then I would get to know them. I said, really, the Panthers play the way we always play. You know, but they wouldn't know that because they, you know, they hadn't seen me play. But if they didn't know our teams, but in a 7-game series, you know, you look at how Edmonton came apart. They came apart because they were tired of getting run at. They're not used to having that night in and after. So some people can take it on a short time. You know what I mean? Take it for a game or two. But when you know every time you're going back, people are going to try to hurt you. And you know, there's nothing wrong in sports with hitting people hard enough to hurt them. It's part of the game. It's not being a bully. You're not really trying to injure the player, but you're trying to make him you're trying to make him hurt that he doesn't want to be that guy to get the puck first. And you know, to me, that's the easiest way to win it. And you look at even the Final Four, just about every year in the NHL, they have one thing in common: they're skilled and they're physical. And this team, I call it my turning back the clock team. We're big and skilled and tough, and it's going to be an absolute hornet's nest coming into Allen this year. Last year they had a really soft team and a bunch of, you know what? It was a bunch of those guys you're talking about in camp. They all thought they were first and second line guys, but not good enough and not hard to play against. You know, and so it's going to be
it's a bad combo.
Yeah, it's a bad combo. They're all gone. They're all gone, and I got a bunch of, I call them hard guys. That if you ever watch that Tarantino movie when there's a scene and the one guy says, "I got some hard guys coming," and they're gonna torture that guy. That's what I got. I got a bunch of hard guys coming, and it's gonna be they're nasty, and I'm looking forward to it.
Love to see guys that have careers in the National Hockey League, but have better careers as their second careers. And that's certainly what you've done as a coach. How'd you get into coaching? And was there a coach that maybe you tried to emulate that you take some things from?
Yeah, that's another kind of a funny story. So I was a financial consultant at Smith Barney when I retired, and
this keeps getting better. I love it.
So I worked for the guy that owned the San Diego Gulls, owned the brick furniture store on all in Canada. So I was working for him. Yeah, Comrie. So he bought the San Diego Gulls my last year. And so I did sales for him and I outsold everybody in all 5 of his stores. So I used that to get in. I ended up working at Smith Barney and went to Wall Street. And so anyway, this group of people wanted me to coach a roller hockey team. They had pro roller hockey back then. And they said, hey, the owner wants to meet you. And I'm like, okay. And I just wanted to open up an account with them. I was like, okay, the guy's got money. I'm going to go meet with him. And they ended up talking me into coaching. And then Don Waddell was the GM of San Diego that then was moving to LA when Comrie didn't get the lease that he wanted. And so he moved the team and then he referred me. And so I was never planning on coaching ever. But I enjoyed doing the roller hockey. So I said, okay, I'll try this. So anyway, Rick Green and Larry Robinson are coaching LA. And I call him up and I said, hey, Greeny, can I meet with you guys after practice? I'm coaching this new team and I got to get some systems because, like, I played for so many different coaches. That's the good thing. I learned a lot of different things, but I was never planning on coaching. So it wasn't like, you know, so I went up there and got a bunch of stuff. I still use some of the stuff that I was working with Larry and it was so funny when Larry was talking to me about their team, he's like, they had taken over after Keenan had been there. And he goes, yeah, we're just getting the players back to playing and, you know, playing the way the game is meant to be played and having some fun playing instead of all these X's and O's. So that's how I got my start and ended up liking it and still doing it now.
What about just the nature of the ECHL? Because you have to recruit as a coach. Like in the NHL, there's GMs, but you are kind of the czar in Allen, and you're responsible for assembling this team and then coaching them on the ice too. So how have you kind of how do you view that part of it? I guess like the team assembly, the free agency, recruiting guys, all that stuff.
Yeah. So one of the because I was a broker and we used to make 100 calls a day and a salesman, so recruiting is mostly selling. You got to sell them on your program, but ours is like everybody talks about defense winning championships, and the first thing I tell players is, yep, defense wins championships, but the team that scores the most goals wins every game. And when a player hears that, automatically he's thinking, okay, this sounds interesting, and points get you noticed, and it's your ability to play without the puck. If you want to move up, they look at the scores, but a lot of times they want to know, okay, can we count him if he doesn't have the puck? And that's the big thing where I talk about with the players. Now you got to add that to your game. If you want to get your foot in the door of the American League, they got to trust that you can defend and that you'll finish your checks and you'll be hard to play against. And then let that get you in the lineup, and then let your offense take over. So that's the way I recruit. I recruit on we're going to be an offensive team that's heavy, and we're going to finish every check. And some guys are going to score more goals, and some guys are going to hit harder, but everybody's going to hit, and everybody's going to score. And so that's my kind of my nutshell. And then when they get to camp, I'm like, okay, that guy that recruited you, the honeymoon's over. Now I switch gears, and the coach shows up and
pull the rug from underneath them.
Yeah. But I do a lot of back checking drills the first day of camp. And they're like, well, I thought he was going to be a really big offensive guy. I'm like, listen, I just want to make sure you guys know, how to back pressure and how to back check. But we work on offense every day. And ultimately, we all play hockey because it's fun to do things with the puck. It's fun to score goals. It's fun to make plays. And it's fun, for a lot of people, it's fun to have somebody looking down on their back on the ice. I call it looking at the lights. And it's fun to see them looking down at you. And all those things are fun. And we just try to make it really fun, competitive. And I love healthy competition. I'm a big teaser, and I tell people I can dish it out, but I don't take it very well. So be careful. I go, like when I said to Tim Hunter about his nose, I go right for the heart, but we want to make it fun and very, a lot of in-house competition and healthy, and you're playing for stuff in practice, and because that's the reason we play the game. It's a lot of fun to play.
Competition, right? It's all about competition. But why do you think you've had so much success? I mean, 10 championships, is incredible. It really is. But the new kids nowadays, the new era, have you had to evolve as a coach in how you manage them, manage the personalities? Like, do the Mike Keens work anymore? Do the Daryl Sutters work anymore? Or did you have to kind of, try to change how you coached?
Well, so I tried to always make it a little bit of fun, even from the get-go. And so, like, what I'm very honest with the players, and I don't play any of those games. And I tell players that, listen, if you like to be pushed, I'm a good person to play for. If you don't like to be pushed, I'm not, because I'm a pretty good judge at what your ability is. And we're going to watch you at your ability when we need you. And if you're having an off game, you better have it on an off game when we're not going to need you to, I'll be telling there's a spot for you in the middle of the bench, and you can watch it a little bit. It doesn't matter what line you're on, but I'm big at, letting guys play up in lines and let them see, like, no, I don't know how many times you got pigeonholed as a player, but you get pigeonholed. And one time I scored a goal, and the coach goes, I didn't know you could do that. I'm like, well, check my stat, donkey. And you know what I mean? But so I try to make it fun, and like I said, make it competitive. And players that want to do really well, they like to be pushed, as long as you're fair about it. You know what I mean? I don't expect anybody to do anything that they're not capable of doing, but I tell them I'm a pretty good judge of what you're capable of doing. And trust me, if you're not there and when we need you, you'll hear about it.
Well, Marty, one thing that's different for me working in the NHL than working in Rockford is the travel. Like it's incredible. They treat us so nice, but we have our own rooms on the road. You must have had a million roommates on the road during your playing days. I'm curious, who are your favorite roommates, and if there's any funny shenanigan stories you can share.
Well,
from your
I
days
room
on
with
the road.
Chelly. I room Chelly on the road, and Chelly could drink till 5 a.m. and get up 2 hours and go. He could go run 5 miles on 2 hours of sleep. I mean, I've never seen a guy like. A lot of times you get to the NHL and you see these guys, they don't have to lift weights. They're just jacked. They're just, it's a gift from their parents. I mean, they're just jacked. They have all this natural ability. And then you get a guy like Chelios that has a lot of natural ability, but he's just a machine. Like, he could ride the bike at level, the stuff that he would do. So he was a lot of fun and very personable. And then I had Todd Ewan, who snored so loud, I had literally been in tears and like take my bed into the bathroom and try to sleep in the bed in the tub. But yeah, I had, and then when I started out in Toledo, Lauren Mulliken was our goalie.
I remember him.
And yeah, he was a beauty. They used to send me out. I was hurt, and Mooner would be at some bar late at night, and the coach would call me and go, Marty, Can you go find Mooter? Because he back in those days he drank a lot, and he was under contract with the Islanders.
You're
and
like,
I'd
yeah,
be
he's right
walking
beside
around.
me.
Yeah. do you know Mooner?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, he's a beauty. I used to have to go find him. And I would walk into the bars and go to the bar. Mooner here? Nope, he's next door. I'm like, okay, Mooner. I go get him. But I used to get in a lot of bar fights too. And I didn't pick fights, but I always made myself available to anybody that was looking for trouble. And I was real young looking. I had I didn't have any sideburns or anything. So I always looked younger than I was. So they would look at me and they go, oh, okay, I'm going to kill you. And I'm like, I would just be like a coiled snake, just ready to go. So I kind of counted my beers, and I still to that day, I don't go to places where I run into people that I want to punch, because I still would like to punch people that I want to punch. So I just kind of avoid going to those places.
Did you follow that Nick Tarnasky at all? That whole story?
I friended him on Facebook.
It's too bad for you, right? That cameras didn't exist back then, because you would be famous right now.
Oh, I'm glad they didn't exist, man. Trust me. I'm glad they, and same thing with videotaping. One time I knocked a guy out on a line change, and I hit him right over the head. You know, everyone makes Sorley hit that guy in the side of the head.
Yeah,
remember that? He got banned. So I hit a guy over the head on a line change. He had jumped me when I had a broken hand. I beat him up. He was like a big flyer contracted guy. It was when I was a rookie, and I was playing with a broken hand, and the captain says, "I thought you had a broken hand." I said, "Yeah, I do. They're just shooting it up." And so the guy comes out to pick a fight with me, and he tried to eye gouge me. So anyway, I probably shouldn't tell that story, but I knocked him right out on line change, and he was laying on the ice, and I ended up getting suspended indefinitely, but they didn't have video. So I said, "Hey, listen," he was faking. I said, "I barely hit him. I just kind of collided with him, and my spit cut up. Like it was like a tomahawk."
He's on a
breathing
tube in the hospital.
Yeah. I mean, it was.
I just nicked him. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was just out cold. He was laying, and everybody's kind of looking around. I'm like, okay, I probably shouldn't have done that, but my coach at the time was this Ted Garvin, and they traded for me. And Garvin had said on the news that they were asking about the instigator rule and all these things. Not what instigator, but trying to take fighting out of hockey. And he's like, oh, he says, yeah, they're trying to kill the game. He was just out of control. It was crazy times back then. But Tarnasky, I messaged him on Facebook, and I'm friends with him now, because I didn't golf very often, but sometimes you deal with people on the golf course. You would. So I just said to him, "Hey, man, you didn't do anything that I didn't want to do to a few people over the time." But a lot of people were. That was pretty funny, especially when he was doing the highlights.
I'm surprised you haven't signed him yet, Marty.
I thought about it. I was looking to see how old he was and how long he'd been out. I think he's 38 years old or so. I think he's maybe in his 40s now. But we might bring him in. We're going to be doing a big pilot for production companies. So who knows? Maybe you'll see him dropping a puck. And then maybe we got that Top Golf right across the street from the rink, and have them go over there and hit a few balls.
Oh, we got to hang out. I know that, Marty. You are one hell of a guest. The stories, we got to get you on the NashCast, the TV portion of it. Maybe next time you're in town, ever in Salt Lake. But I got to go back to Salt Lake itself. The Golden Eagles, what was that like? And could you believe that they finally got an NHL team?
Yeah, I love that town. I really liked living there. I rented a guy who was a drug dealer's apartment. So I had this really nice apartment, and it was all furnished, and I was with the Rangers then, and we had won the championship the year before in Tulsa. And it was I really liked it there. They had this thing called these Jack Mormons, and probably still have those today now. So it was an interesting time. Yeah, you guys are acting like you don't know what I'm talking about.
I didn't even hear what you said. What did you call them?
Jack Mormons.
Like
never heard of a Jack Mormon?
Jacked?
No, you got to look that up.
Okay.
You got to look that up.
Are you surprised though? Are you surprised at like the just the enthusiasm with the fans? Before the show started, we were talking about the tattoos that people are getting of the Mammoth. I mean, they're crazy there.
Yeah, I mean so I haven't been there, but we all we'll be there this year when we play the ECHL team. But it is a great town, and I did go to a basketball game once when we were there, and I never go to basketball just because I wanted to see what the building was like. But yeah, I'm glad for Utah, and I'm glad for Salt Lake City. It's one of my favorite places that I ever played.
Now, Allen was Utah's minor league affiliate last season. And I think when a lot of people, maybe casual fans, think about hockey in the minor leagues, they might try to relate it to baseball, but it doesn't really work the same way as baseball. So how do you see the relationship between an ECHL team and their NHL affiliate and the path for players to move up, from the ECHL to the AHL and then beyond? Because there's a number of guys who have done it.
Well, there's a ton of guys, and most of the guys that have done it started out on them, started out on AHL contracts or NHL contracts. But there are guys that have big NHL careers that start out on AA contracts, and there's a lot of late bloomers and guys that figure it out later. And I had one guy I loaned it to. He had played a couple of years in the coast. His name was Brian Rodney, and he'd played behind some older guys. Got traded, didn't want to go to Fresno. I picked him up. He had 11 points in 6 games for me as a defenseman, but he was a good OHL player. And here he was going to quit North America. He was going to go to Europe. I convinced him to come into Elmira, New York, as the only place to do there was to play hockey. We loaned him to the American League, and I just said, hey, this kid can really move the puck. He was playing in Edmonton a year later. Within a year of being on a $650 a week contract, he was playing in Edmonton. Now, he had 11 points in 21 games for Edmonton, but he didn't skate well enough to stay in the NHL. He ended up going to Europe. But, there's guys that fall through the cracks. And, if you believe in yourself as a player, you can make it, but you got to put the work in, and you have to outwork the draft picks. You got to outwork the guys that have been invested on, obviously, by the organization.
Yeah.
Last question for me, Steve. Just you grew up in Minnesota, and you played for the North Stars. How cool was that? I know in my career, I grew up in Edmonton, just outside Edmonton. I was like, if I could ever play for the Edmonton Oilers, it would be the coolest thing in the world. What was that like?
Well, so the one game I played was in Detroit. Was in Toronto. I played one game for Minnesota in Toronto. And then when I was in Montreal, I had hurt my neck a couple times. It was stiff. But Pat Burns would
from the shapery.
Turning my head. But no, so Pat Burns actually, I had like 7 games that I suited up that I never even played a shift. And Pat Burns never played, you know what I mean? So he didn't realize how crummy that was to have a guy on the bench and not even play. So one of them was in Minnesota. So I got my college buddies who have been drinking at the game, and they're coming down to the bench, and they're like, hey, put Martinson out there. We want to see. So I got people behind the bench, and Burns is like, well, I'm like, come on, guys, knock it off. But yeah, it was, but back in those days, Minnesota had, they really dropped off, and Guerin has really brought it back. But back in those days, when I was in Montreal, we go play, and there'd be like 9,000 people at the game. We used to call it friends and family at the games back then. But yeah, it was nice. It was then this was kind of funny. So Bobby Clark calls me. At first, it's not Bobby Clark. It's the coach at the time, and I had played with him in Montreal. Bob Gainey. He calls me up, and I answer the phone, but it's now this is we don't have a cell phone, so I answer the phone, and he thinks he hangs it up because I was like, oh, I'm not answering this phone. They're probably going to send me back. And this is why I'd been called up from San Diego. So he thinks he hangs up the phone, and he puts it down, and I could hear him and Bobby Clark talking. And I'm like, should I listen? I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to listen. So they bring up me, and Bobby Clark's going, well, he goes, Christ, he's from Minnesota. Give him a couple more games, give him a couple more days. And I'm like, yeah, listen to him. Give me at least another week. And anyway, so I listened for a while. Then they started talking about other things, and I was like, I probably don't want to get caught listening to him for 15 minutes talking about other stuff. But you got to be careful when you think you hang the phone up.
Oh,
and they sent me down. I called him back, and he sent me down the next day. I was like, off, Bob.
Oh. I got a couple more for you, Marty. One, I was there in Rockford when you were lifted up to the rafters and enshrined in the Rockford Ice Hogs Ring of Honor. And I'm sure you've been honored with other teams at various degrees and things like that, but you've meant a lot to a lot of teams and communities. How cool is that to get those types of recognitions, and specifically that one in Rockford, because that was a really special night.
Yeah, it was fun because, I lived here. you know, I live north of Rockford. I live in Machesney Park, so it's nice. I come back here every summer, and you know, I like to see them having some success. And as I told you, I thought they should have done better that year in the playoffs. I thought they had a really good team, and I thought they were going to go a lot deeper in the playoffs. So I like the new coach that they brought in. I think he's going to do really well for him, and I think he's a good guy, and we'll see.
Yeah, and then my last one here. Back at your coaching days, I'm curious. I want to know the story behind this clip, because when you look up Steve Martinson on YouTube, this is one of the videos that comes up. It's when you were with Allen and you and this other coach are going back and forth, it looks like, on the bench. And the actual like Allen team YouTube account published this.
Is that the flex off one?
Yeah, you flex at the guy,
Yeah.
and you're pointing at your muscles. What
So
was
that's
going on there?
That's Kevin McClellan.
Oh,
You know, that used to play for Edmonton.
legend.
And so, yeah, so and he was just a beast. So we were friends, but you know, in the game, so his tough guy had jumped one of our guys that doesn't fight. And I was like, he was making a face like he was covering him. Like, yeah, I mean, I had the guy that you know, this Lizon was a terrible player, and I'm like, I said, God, he can't even beat up our goal scorer. And so then McClellan made the flex to be first, and he's a really tough guy, but he's not, you know, he doesn't work out or anything. He's not very good. And at that time, I was like 220, and I was still pretty jacked. And I was like, that's when I did the flex back, and I was kind of teasing him a little bit. I come out back. You're not gonna be able to flex off with me. So
False. I don't want it to end. I don't want it to end.
yeah. Well, we almost got into it one time. We almost got into it one time underneath the stands. When I was coaching roller hockey, this is kind of funny. I got in with Tiger Williams on the bench. He tried to grab one of my players' sticks. So I told him on the bench, I'm like, I beat up guys that killed you. And so we actually left and went underneath the stands in Vancouver, and then a bunch of people got in, and I ended up talking to him later, but we were going to go at it underneath the stands, which I'd done that a few times. You know, I got in a fight with Jay Miller once in Providence underneath the stands. That week I kicked out of the game in a fight, and we were fighting underneath the stands for about 5 minutes before anybody came back there. So it was
False.
It was
You
kind
did
of
a
tough
lot
for
of
me because
things.
I love Tiger Williams. I idolized him growing up. I was like, this guy's crazy.
Nasher, you see why I didn't feel safe in the broadcast booth, because I would get wailed on up there. But
And Fultz, you did a lot of things. You did a lot of things under the stands. It wasn't fighting. I know that, Fultz.
We had a pretty good time.
Marty,
we had a pretty good time. I enjoyed doing that. And you know what?
Yeah.
One thing I say to players now is, you know, there's a lot of, you know, don't give up on getting the American League, because it's just one step away. And Tyson, you know, what I used to say is these guys aren't that much better than me. And, you know, you work hard, you train hard, you go, okay, they're not out training me, and I'm going to get somebody's spot. And that's, you know, one of the things I saw with doing all the color with Rockford is there's plenty of guys on the coast that can move up, but, you know, they got to add something to their game to do it.
Yeah. And you need that mentality. Yeah.
This has been unbelievable. Old school type hockey talk. This has been so much fun.
101.
Hot stove. You don't get this very often. I'm just telling you, you are a breath of fresh air, my friend.
We'll get together for a beer when I come into Utah. If you guys are in town, if you guys are around,
I'll make sure. I'll make sure.
Absolutely.
Well, you have to take me downtown. Do they still have the Green Parrot? That's where we used to go.
Yes.
Used to place called the Green Parrot.
Yes, I believe they do. They also have another place called the Lake Effect.
The Green Pig's a good spot. I don't know about the Parrot, but
well,
you know all the spots in every town from coast to coast.
Not anymore. I used to when I played, but not anymore.
Well, Marty, thank you
guys.
again for joining us. Good luck this season, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys, take it easy.
Well, there you have it, Fultz. Are you kidding me? I wanted to talk to this guy all day long. I didn't want it to end. Just so colorful, right? What a personality, and some of the stories. His first fight in the National Hockey League, Dave Semenko. He talks about Marty McSorley and all the times that they fought. And that year in Hershey that kind of really put him on the map in ways. 69 games, 432 penalty minutes. I cannot imagine just sitting down with this guy and how much fun. You worked with him, Fultz. I mean, what was that like?
Well, it was interesting because, first of all, he's a guy who fought his way into the NHL in a very tough era, right?
Oof.
But also, when I first met him and first sat down with him, we were thinking about, you know, making him a part of our broadcast team in the American Hockey League, and and it was just like the interview that we recorded with him, Tyson. He's telling these stories. He's a colorful storyteller. You can tell that he's been in some battles. And there were two thoughts in my head. It's like, we got to get this guy on. He's unbelievable. The other thought was, there's no way we can have this guy on the air. so there were two competing thoughts, and he came on, and obviously
it was like a car crash. You're like, I don't want to see it, but you can't help but watch, right?
We had so much fun calling games together, and just getting to know him was really enriched my knowledge of the game, but also enriched my appreciation for guys who played in the era that he did. And look, the ECHL is a tough league to coach in. It's a tough league to play in, because those coaches, we kind of touched on this a little bit. In the ECHL, you are essentially the judge, jury, and executioner of your team. You are the general manager in a lot of instances. You are also the coach. Martinson was a guy who didn't always have an assistant coach. There's not like a goalie coach, a skills coach, all this other stuff. It's really typically just one or two coaches. And you have to recruit along with that, right? You have to sign guys. And Marty did all
during
that.
Our interview, wasn't he? During our interview, his phone was buzzing. I mean, he was ready to make some trades.
He traded a guy during our interview. Yeah. But just to have the bandwidth to be able to do all that is incredibly impressive. And then obviously run practices and know the X's and O's. And it was a ton of fun, obviously, having him on. And it went about as well as I expected it to go. Like, that's exactly what I was looking for when I asked Steve Martinson to come on. So appreciate Marty jumping on, and glad you had a good time with him too, Tyson.
Absolutely. First star to you, Foltz, for bringing on, obviously, Martinson, the stories. I can't get enough of it. I can't wait to go back and watch that on all the channels. What is it? NashCast Official on Instagram, NashCast Official on YouTube. We're
just
on
got
Spotify.
verified on Instagram, right?
I saw that. I've never had a blue check mark. I don't know. We must have paid for it, because there's no way they're giving a blue check mark to me. I can tell you that.
All the money for your lake house renovations went to the blue check mark. So that's why the contractors haven't finished it yet, right?
Yeah, I'm back in Arizona though. So Foltz, that means business time. 18-hour car ride the other day. It was 25 in total, but I pulled off an 18-hour shift. I was delirious on the road. I couldn't see. I'm a terrible night driver. I mean, obviously, you've seen my vision. I don't have a mirror, clearly, with this mustache. But I'm back home, and that means hockey time. I can't wait to get back to Utah. And I hope everyone enjoyed that interview. It was an absolute beauty.
Bring the thunder. NashCast pulls you under.